Erica, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Monette?
Here.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Present.
Commissioner Knudsen?
Here.
Vice Chair Parker? Is absent. Chair Kistner?
Here. The next item is a public forum. This is an opportunity for the public to address the Commission on items of interest to the public that are not listed on the agenda. Because of restrictions imposed by the Brown Act, the Commission may not engage in discussion or take action on matters not described on the agenda. Please observe the time limit of 3 minutes. Is there any public comment? Public comments closed. Consent items. Members of the Commission or the public may ask that any item be considered individually for purposes of considering alternative action for extended discussion or for public comment. Unless this is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. 4.1, approval of minutes. The Commission minutes of April the 4th, 2017. File number PL17-012, 2140 Dean York Lane. That's it.
I wasn't at the last meeting. I was absent, so do I just not vote? I mean, how do we do the consent? Are there two things on the consent calendar? So do we vote on each one separately? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion to approve 4.1?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Yes.
Commissioner Knudsen?
Yes. Yes.
Chair Kistner?
Yes. You don't call her also, she should abstain.
Oh, Commissioner Monette?
I abstain. Yeah, I wasn't here. You already know that.
4.2, does anyone want to pull that one? May I hear a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Monette?
Yes.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Yes.
Commissioner Knudsen?
Yes.
Chair Kistner?
Yes. Next item is public hearings. File number PL17-017. The location of the property is 995 Vintage Avenue. The applicant, Mia Sia, is requesting a use permit to operate a CrossFit-based fitness facility. It would serve as a community-oriented program with focus on fitness, nutrition, and health style. May I have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair Kistner. The project before you is the Crush Fitness Facility. The applicant, Matt Chia, is requesting a use permit to operate a CrossFit-based fitness facility at 995 Vintage Avenue in the Industrial Zoning District. The facility would offer CrossFit, boot camp, and yoga classes to members of the public, as well as some drop-ins. It would also offer one-on-one personal training. And then, depending on the level of interest, may offer open gym hours, which consist of unstructured time for members to do their own workout with supervision from an instructor. And this would happen during hours when there were not regular classes. The Crush Fitness Gym would be located in a 3,000 square foot space in an existing 12,000 square foot industrial warehouse building at 995 Vintage Avenue. At present, the warehouse is occupied by multiple tenants, the largest of which is Wine Country Cases. This business will be moving from the site, and Crush Fitness hopes to occupy 3,000 square feet of the newly available space, or 2 of the newly available 5 bays. The gym would offer classes Monday through Friday between the hours of 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. and would offer 1 class Saturday morning from 9 until 10 a.m. The class size is expected to generally be between 6 and 8 students. and the gym would employ 2 to 3 part-time instructors. It's expected that amplified music will be played indoors, but limited to a level typical of a workout class, which would not be expected to disturb adjacent land uses. The site features 33 parking spaces, of which approximately 17 are required to support the office use, and the remaining spaces would be available for use by this project, and then whatever use comes to fill that remaining vacant space. The Crush Fitness Gym would generate most of its revenue from local repeat customers who would form its membership base, and is a business that is intended to satisfy the day-to-day needs of local residents and generally serve regular repeat customers. It would be expected to be consistent with general plan policies 2.6.27 and 3.4.4, which discourage uses that are primarily tourist serving, and with the overall intent of perpetuating uses that fulfill the day-to-day needs of the local population. Under the industrial zoning designation, health and fitness fitness clubs are a conditionally allowed use. The project does not propose any exterior or site modifications that would impact the development standard consistency, and therefore the proposed project is expected to be consistent with the applicable standards. In terms of parking, as I said, the site is served by 33 spaces, and it's generally split into office and then warehouse and manufacturing space. So it's expected that the office space will require about 17 of those spaces. The applicant has noted that the most popular class times would be outside of regular business hours, so most likely 6 a.m. and 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. However, there would be some late morning and early afternoon classes that would overlap with the regular business hours. As a health and fitness facility, the Crush Fitness is not prescribed specific parking standards, but instead it's left at the discretion of the Planning Commission to determine the sufficient level of parking. Based on the kind of a best guess estimation, it's expected that 7 to 8 off-street parking spaces would be available during typical business hours for this use, and then 8 or 9 spaces available for whatever future use comes to occupy the remaining space. In general, and based on the local serving nature of the gym and its small scale and operations, and that it seems to have a reasonable level of parking, the project seems to be consistent with the general plan and zoning code. As a conditionally allowed use, the project must further be found to meet the use permit findings prescribed by the zoning code. As a fitness gym of minimal intensity relative to what other industrial uses in the area, and which would serve the local population, the project is able to meet the findings needed to issue a use permit. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving a use permit for the Crush Fitness facility.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions, staff?
Yeah, I was wondering. Oh, go ahead. Did you? I understand there's one bathroom in this area. Is that accurate?
I'm not actually sure, but that's probably something that the applicant may be able to confirm.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, maybe I'll ask the applicant then these questions.
Any other questions? Would the applicant like to speak?
I have just 2 questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just based on more from the public comment that we had on this when it was on the agenda. This is kind of in reference to the public comment that came up when this item was on the agenda prior to being continued. So the only concern or questions I had was, this is not a membership base. The way the use permit's set today, this is not membership base. It's drop-in, correct? That was a concern.
My understanding is that it would be membership based, but also would accommodate drop-ins.
Okay, and then the other, if there's any change in use, a new use permit or an expanded use would require a new use permit. Okay, that was just questions that were raised last time.
Oh, yeah, and that's correct. And we have a condition in there that stipulates that if there's any change in intensity or use, they would need to come back.
Just making sure that's been stated, since those folks aren't here this week. They couldn't be here.
David, do you have any questions? Would the applicant like to speak?
Yeah, to answer your question, there is one bathroom for the space.
The follow-up question that was, are you going to have showers?
No.
No. Okay, I didn't think so, but okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Do you want to talk about the project a little bit?
Sure. So basically, I'm not sure if you're familiar with CrossFit or not, but CrossFit is basically it's a functional fitness class-based program. So basically, the classes are an hour long. Everybody does the same workout, regardless whether you're 8 years old or 75 years old. It pretty much can accommodate anybody, any age, any physical fitness level, and it's purely based on functional fitness. So there's you're not using machines and things like that. It's all body weight movement, and we're also hoping to have a yoga class and or boot camp, which essentially boot camp is very similar to CrossFit. It's just a little bit, some of the movements are a little more basic. CrossFit is basically a fitness system that focuses on not only fitness but nutrition, and really community mostly, because you're working out in classes and everybody's doing the same workouts. So it tends to promote teamwork and the classes seem to be pretty tight knit over time. So it's really enjoyable, I think, for most people when they finally get used to the workouts. But so that's basically what our focus is going to be.
It's CrossFit based, but you're not licensing the CrossFit name. Is that correct?
No, we are.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. So in order to utilize CrossFit, at least the word, you have to be licensed with CrossFit. So it's really no different than like TRX, if you're familiar with that. Most gyms have TRX classes. It's kind of a similar thing where if you're going to advertise it as TRX, you have to be affiliated with that to offer it, type thing. So CrossFit is very similar. It's just a method of working out, and our trainers are trained through CrossFit coaching certifications, and that allows us to use the CrossFit name.
Got it. But it sounds like from a branding perspective, you're going to call yourself Crush Fit.
Yeah, Crush Fitness is really our branding names, just simply because we're going to be doing more than just CrossFit. The focus is going to be functional fitness, but as part of that, we will be offering CrossFit, but also like I said, boot camp and yoga and some nutrition. As part of the classes, we'll talk about nutrition and help with nutrition planning and that type of thing. And
no weights, or are there weights?
Yeah, there are.
Okay.
Yeah. There CrossFit classes do involve Olympic lifting, but it's scalable. So it sounds pretty intense, but it's not really that intense when you start talking about applying it to somebody's fitness level. So we may be doing an Olympic lift movement, but somebody might be using a PVC pipe instead of a barbell.
Mm-hmm.
So will you have Pilates classes?
We're not sure.
Okay.
Potentially, really, as far as the class goes, whether it's yoga or Pilates, it really depends on what the preference is.
So the crush is about crushing. It's not about wine crush. I thought
it's a play on the name.
That's pretty clever. What?
I said it's just a play on the word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
The only question I have is the restroom that's there already there?
Yes.
It's existing?
Yes.
Oh, I had another question too. Are you going to be selling nutritive products? Nutrition products, or
we don't have any plans of selling that. Sometimes companies want to offer nutritional supplements at the gyms. So I would say that there's a potential that we would, yes.
Okay. Is that part of the program that you buy certain
not
products?
necessarily.
Or?
No.
Okay.
No. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
David, would you like to start the discussion?
Seems pretty straightforward to me. industrial use, but instead put people in it instead of wine. And, I'm all for health, and so why not?
I agree. I think that it's pretty straightforward, and the space is good for it, and we've got parking. It's fine.
Yeah, the parking was a little problematic for me because, let's see, I think the square footage that will be left is about twice what you'll be taking up, and so that means there are 16 spots, so you'd get about 9, I think. I think it's a little over half. You have a little over half of the square footage. And I was thinking if you're wildly successful, it might be an issue, but that would be a good thing. And I went over there today, and the street is pretty parked up, and it's not a deal breaker for me at all, but, I could imagine that it might be an issue depending on who rented the other 5,000 square feet, but or nearly 6,000 square feet. But maybe that's just going to be an issue in the future for that area because if it builds up. And also the noise, I was happy to hear about the noise, but I went over there today and I was thinking you probably have to crank up your music because the woodwork business in the same building is really loud. So I'm not even sure, it didn't seem that the music would be a problem. There's a lot of noise over there already, so it might be a welcome addition. So I have no problem with it. I think it's great. I'm curious to test, to see what's going on over there and to try it out.
Yeah, I like the project also. I'm all for fitness. Do I have a motion?
Okay, I gotta get to the last one. Let's see. I move that we determine that the project is categorically exempt from the requirements of CEQA pursuant to CEQA Section 15301, existing facilities, as the operation of a business within an existing private structure involving a negligible expansion of use beyond that existing at the time of the lead agency's determination, and to accept the required findings enumerated in Municipal Code Section 17.168.040 and adopt a resolution supporting a use permit for the proposed Crush St. Helena fitness facility.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Chair Kistner, I might have missed it, but did you open public comment for this item?
That's good.
I did not, thank you. Is there any public comment? Public comment's closed. Thank you.
Commissioner Monette?
Yes.
Commissioner Knudsen?
Yes.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Yes.
Chair Kistner?
Yes.
Chair Kistner, just if I might interject, I understand that often commission members do like to announce the full motion, but it isn't legally necessary. If you'd find it easier, you can just say, I move the staff recommendation in favor of the project, and that would be legally sufficient. Again, it's some commissioners have the preference to allow the public to hear the full motion, but I just want to make that clarification.
It's also on the agenda. Okay. Next item is file number PL17-014, the location of the properties at 1000 Pratt Avenue. The applicant, Scott Bartley, on behalf of Treasury Wine Estates America, is requesting design review approval to replace 8 large format wine fermentation tanks with 130 smaller format wine fermentation tanks to encourage a higher level of quality.
And Chair, I will need to recuse myself as I work for Treasury Wine Estates.
Yeah, we won't forget you this time, Greg.
Okay.
May I have a staff report, please? Lily did this one.
Thank you, Chair Kistner. The Behringer Icon 3 project includes a request for design review approval to reconstitute the existing tank farm, improve site operations, and supplement landscaping around the site periphery. The subject property is located in northern St. Helena at 1000 Pratt Avenue and comprised of approximately 63 acres in total. The site has operated as the Behringer production facility since the 1970s and today is comprised generally of 4 buildings, appurtenant parking areas, a wine tank farm, and grape processing area. Areas not devoted to the production operation are planted in vineyards and primarily located around the border of the site. A portion of York Creek does traverse the property and is located southeast of the grape processing area and tank farm. Along with the vineyards, a series of trees and shrubs provide screening along the property frontage on Highway 29 and Pratt Avenue. As I said, the applicant is requesting design review to replace 8 large format wine fermentation tanks, or I should just say wine tanks. They can be used for fermentation or storage. But 8 large format tanks with 130 smaller format tanks to encourage a higher level of quality. The decommissioning of the 8 large format tanks would effectively remove 796,800 gallons of production capacity, and the introduction of 130 smaller format tanks would reintroduce capacity for 757,000 gallons, which would result in a net reduction in the available production capacity of about 40,000. The reconstitution of the tank farm would necessitate an expansion of the tank farm area to the east and west of the existing tank farm, and on, I guess, some of it's already hardscaped area, and some of it is more gravel area. New tanks would be set atop a concrete slab and would exhibit a height of 17 to 18 feet. They would be substantially similar to the small format tanks that are currently on site. In addition to the reconstitution of the tank farm, the applicant has also proposed the introduction of a new forklift path and ramp, the relocation and redesign of an existing receiving station and press pit, and a redesign of an existing weigh station and central scale house in an effort to improve traffic flow and just simplify the on-site operations. They've also requested to reuse 10 previously decommissioned tanks for rainwater capture, which would be located east of the existing one of the existing barrel storage buildings that's located in the northeastern portion of the site. The Behringer facility features a general plan land use designation of ag and zoning designation of winery. The proposed project activities would be confined to previously disturbed areas of the site and would serve to improve site circulation and functionality, which would presumably enhance the viability of the agricultural use and would be consistent with applicable general plan policies, including policy 2.6.1, requiring that new development occur in a logical and orderly manner within well-defined boundaries, and be consistent with the ability to provide urban services. It would also be consistent with policy 2.6.5, which encourages the continuation of agricultural and low-intensity uses adjacent to the urban limit line, and policy 2.6.58 and 6.3.1, which seeks to encourage the continuity of ag-designated lands and operations. Under the zoning code, the project is subject to development standards and a list of other standards and requirements, which is enumerated under section 17.24.070. Based on the location, height, and scale of the proposed site components, which are all consistent with what currently exists on the site, the project is determined to comply with all applicable development standards. Further, the level of parking would continue to exceed the amount required under the code. And given that, the project is found to exhibit general consistency with the general plan and zoning code. Similarly, when considered against the design review criteria, the project appears to be consistent with all standards in that all proposed elements, the tanks, press, and scale, etc., will be of substantially similar design and scale to the wine production equipment that's currently on site. And all proposed tanks would be of a lesser height than the large format tanks, thereby allowing them to blend in more with the existing facility. The tanks proposed for water capture or rainwater capture would be lined against the east side of one of the barrel storage buildings in the northeast portion of the site and would remain screened from view. Last, the applicant has proposed supplementing the existing landscaping that extends along the property frontage on
Highway 29 and Pratt Avenue to further screen and soften the property when viewed from public right-of-ways. In general, the proposed activities are in line with the current site character, scale, and spatial organization on site and appear to be consistent with design review criteria. Given that, the Planning and Community Improvement Department recommends the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving a design review permit for the Behringer Icon 3 project.
Thank you, Lily.
Yes, and I can answer any questions, but I also believe the applicant has a presentation.
Okay. Do you have any questions for staff right now? No. David? Would the applicant like to speak, please?
Thank you, Chair Kistner and Commissioners, for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'm Scott Bartley, architect with Holland Bartley Architects in Santa Rosa. I'm here representing Treasury Wine Estates, the owners of Behringer Vineyards. Also with me today is Eric Gilliland, the General Manager of Behringer, and Deborah Doman, their Vice President of Government and Industry Affairs. I want to thank staff for the working with us on this project and the thoroughness of their presentation. As with the Trinchero design review that was approved last September, the goal of this project is to modify the production techniques at this facility in order to meet current demand for higher quality wines. Because of this demand, there is a need for smaller capacity fermenting tanks in place of existing larger ones. The project will decommission 8 large fermenting tanks and replace them with smaller fermenters as outlined in that tank gallonage analysis sheet as part of your package. It results in a net reduction of fermenting capacity on site. We are additionally requesting, as noted in the staff report, that the decommissioned tanks can be reused for rainwater capture from the roofs of the facility. As the item before the design review, the Commission is a design review item, I want to address issues of design and visual impacts of the project. The new tanks are a lower profile. Their overall height is a maximum of 17 feet, which is considerably shorter than the existing tank farm. The tanks will be double jacketed and visually will blend in with existing tanks on the site. As a part of the project, the site circulation is being reworked and simplified with a relocation of existing truck scale and grape receiving areas. That's also shown on our plans. This project relocates existing production equipment but adds nothing to the production capacity in that regard. Because of the site topography and vegetation, the project will not be visible from Pratt Avenue and will be minimally visible from Main Street. To minimize that visual impact, the existing landscaping will be enhanced along the frontage of Main Street. Additionally, in response to comments we received during our neighborhood meeting, and while not a direct issue for this project, we will be enhancing the existing landscaping along the southern wall of the existing warehouse facing Pratt Avenue. That plan is also included in your package. Regarding parking, all parking required is easily accommodated on site utilizing the existing parking facilities. I do want to talk a little bit about Behringer Vineyards and their commitment to the environment. In the last 10 years, the winery has reduced its water usage by 50%. Also, because of the rooftop photovoltaics, the site generates 40% of the electric power annually that it requires. In your report, in your package, there is a report regarding stormwater. All stormwater on site is captured and directed to the industrial waste ponds where it is treated and reused for irrigation. The only exception for this is an extreme weather instance of extreme rainfall, and even in those cases, the water is retained, tested to make sure it's cleaned up before it's released into the waterways. Although we know this is a design review item, we understand neighbors might have questions and concerns about traffic, given recent projects in that area. We heard those comments during the neighborhood outreach meeting we held in November. There were approximately 25 people in attendance at that meeting, and we want to be clear to everyone that this project will not increase overall traffic beyond historic levels. Also, regarding the issue of traffic, we want to note that in 2008, A majority of the bottling operations were moved off-site. In the EIR prepared for the Napa bottling facility for Napa County, it is noted that the relocation took an average of 12 two-way truck trips a day off of Pratt Avenue and Main Street. Additionally, 30 employees were relocated from St. Helena to Napa, eliminating those traffic counts. In closing, Behringer is proud to be located in St. Helena and wants to remain a vital and engaged business in the community. We also take care of our environment, believe in taking care of the environment very seriously. Behringer is a green certified winery under the Napa Valley Vintners Napa Green Winery program, and all of the vineyards come under their control come under the Napa Greenland or similar requirements. Again, we want to thank staff for their work with us on this project. We have reviewed the staff report and the recommendations and conditions, and we're in agreement with all of them, and we would respectfully request your approval. We're available to answer questions, and I want to thank you. I believe Mr. Gilliland wants to address you briefly, too. Thank you.
So thank you again. My name is Eric Gilliland. I'm the General Manager of Winery Operations at Behringer Vineyards. I just wanted to supplement what Scott had to say. I am on the ground at the winery, and I have listened to what neighbors have to say in regards to the potential traffic issues that may come with this project. We, as the manager of the site, our goal is to not have a lot of trucks. Every truck adds a level of complexity to our operations from a compliance standpoint. That includes delivery affidavits, bill of ladings, things of that nature. So the idea is, even though we're going to be bringing in smaller loads, the idea from a vineyard operations and a winery operations standpoint is to make sure that we combine loads. So putting maybe 2 loads onto one truck, so they'll be half size. And a lot of thought around tank sizing has been put into this project. You'll notice that they start at 12-ton, 16-ton tanks. 12 tons is exactly half of a truck, so if we're splitting a load into 2 tanks, we'd go 2 12-ton tank loads on one truck. So I wanted to make sure that we covered traffic and any concerns there. Also, you know, talking about the pride behind Behringer is this is a really great opportunity for this aging facility. As Lily mentioned, we've been operating since the 70s, and this keeps our business at top of mind in the consumer mindset to be able to make luxury wines. And it's something to be proud of. We receive about 80% of all of our fruit from Napa County, and then we have a large Knights Valley program that we have, and then we have a splash of Lake County fruit that comes through our facility. So it's really special for us to be able to continue to make high-end luxury wines that are sourced from Napa County. And I just wanted to add to that. And then finally, you know, I really wanted to stress that this is a systematic approach. We don't want to. We wanted to make sure when we invited folks out in November that we don't operate in a silo, and we invited folks to town hall. And some of the line items in our packet were directly from that town hall, and when we listened to the neighbors. And I look forward to continuing to have that type of relationship with our neighbors moving forward, and that way we can all be successful together. And that's what I would like to close with. Thank you for your time.
Thank you both. Do you have any questions of the applicant at this point?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, I mean, first of all, I really want to thank you for how sensitive you have been to the public and to the environment. I appreciate that. My main concern was the traffic, and so what I was wondering is, when you have 130 small tanks, how many more truck trips, if more, how many more truck trips to service 130 tanks as to service 2 huge tanks?
You just explained that.
So,
well, I didn't.
So essentially, to make a similar amount of gallons of wine, it's going to take the same amount of trucks, because again, we're going to try to fill the truck to its full capacity, which is about 20 to 25 tons per truckload. So from an efficiency standpoint, we want to reduce, again, the number of trucks, so it's almost equivalent.
So Almost. It's maybe a little more.
Yeah, between what we've had before and what we're reducing our gallon size down to, our capacity down to.
You mentioned historic levels. What did you mean by historic levels when you
historic levels meaning what we've operated at in the past.
Okay. All right. So there wasn't any. I guess I was just wondering if you were going to have trucks coming from a lot of different places having more tanks, but it sounds like the deliveries will be coming from the same points of origin as the large tanks are coming?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The scheduling deliveries.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, another thing that we've done compared to what historically we did not do was we stagger our trucks throughout the day. It used to be back in the day everything would be picked either overnight or early in the morning, and all the trucks would be lined up right when the cellar workers got into the winery, and you'd have a line of trucks out to Pratt Avenue. We have more of a systematic approach to that and have deliveries cadenced throughout the day to minimize that big slug of traffic.
It sounds like you've thought about it a lot.
Yes, we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll now open public comment. Does someone have any comments?
Hello, Mike Quaglia representing my father, Raymond Quaglia, who owns the properties at 1112 Pratt Avenue as well as 1930 Main Street. And, you know, Behringer have been great neighbors over there over the years, and we actually own the property where a lot of their vineyard sits now years ago. Anyway, that being said, my biggest concern is the traffic. And obviously they're making a shift to go to luxury wines more so than the bulk wines that they've done in the past, which I completely respect. However, I do know a little bit about the winemaking industry, not being an expert by any means. However, you know, when you start talking about smaller tanks, luxury wines, you're picking certain parts of the vineyard at certain times to make sure you're getting the optimum fruit to come in. You know, I know they'll try to make sure trucks are coming in full, but I just don't know that's possible in a luxury winemaking environment. Right now, at a minimum, a traffic analysis, I believe it needs to be done, just based on the cumulative impact of Pratt Avenue right now with the Los Alcobos project, which is just a mess. Right now, we have, I virtually can't farm my vineyard due to parking. So, the road from Pratt Avenue, Highway 29 to the entrance of Behringer is completely destroyed, potholes everywhere. A lot of that is due to the trucks, but is also due to the construction project of the hotel as well. So my concern at a minimum is that, I'm not opposed to them making luxury wine by any means, but in the same respect, I do believe the traffic impact is going to increase, and it's already a mess on Highway 29. The intersection of Pratt and 29 has been rated an F. It's not getting any better. So, and we have not even seen the impact of the hotel completely open yet. So, it's a mess over there. I don't think Behringer is trying to, compound that problem. I think they're just trying to do what is consistent to be competitive in the industry. However, I do believe with luxury wines, you are going to see more truck traffic than you are going to see with the bigger tanks. We're removing, I believe, 8 tanks and replacing it with 130. So even though the gallon capacity is going to go down, I do believe by bringing in luxury fruit, it's not going to be in the mass hauling as it was before. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crowley.
Mike Griffin, Park Street. I kind of echo the same thing as Mr. Quaglia does. I've lived on Park Street since '91, and with the construction of the hotel project, you have the CIA thing coming on board with the council. The traffic on Park Street is unbearable, all hours of the night. The last 2 years have been nothing but grape trucks, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, coming by my house with the bins bouncing around and everything like that. You just got too much in that area with that intersection. It's basically Blood Alley right now. The way the configuration, they have the turn lanes and everything. I'm a truck driver, and I don't even know how these semis are going to make the turn on the Pratt, on and off Pratt, the way they have the turn lane there. So to me, I think you just need to put all these projects on hold until you come up with a solution with that intersection. It's a death zone. You're going to get somebody killed. I mean, there's been workers there already run over, numerous wrecks through the construction project. I mean, as far as the gentleman here discussing about the neighborhood meetings, the other day was the first time I received a card. Never been invited to anything. Nobody's ever come over here to talk to me. Anywhere on Park Street, I've talked to neighbors. They don't know nothing that's going on. You know, you're 300 feet in notification of a major project's a joke. I mean, it impacts way more than 300 feet. You know, Park Street is quite a distance from the entrance to Behringer's, but all their traffic comes down that way, regardless of the hotel project. When everything got plugged up, they won't turn on Main Street. They come down Park Street, around Cornella, all the way down there on Main Street. So, I mean, as far as to try to be good neighbors and stuff, no one's ever contacted myself, my neighbors. You know, this time is the first time I got a notification for any project. Nothing on the CIA, nothing on the hotel. And it affects the whole area. Within a mile of the place, you have these major projects or big impact. And nobody's coming out and looking at this stuff. So to me, I think you need to just put all the projects on hold till you deal with the intersection problem. You got a serious problem, and pouring more salt in the wound is not helping anything. And that's what you're doing with every one of these projects. I mean, Behringer gets done now, there's another winery down to Pratt Avenue. You know, they may want to do something, and here you go. Just keep adding. So to me, just put a moratorium on everything within a mile of that intersection until you figure out what you're going to do with the intersection. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Anthony McKelly. I live 1125 Cornella Drive. Fortunately, well, I don't know if the Commission knows, but Treasury has recently bought Diageo. It was another big wine company. And unfortunately, being in the wine business or in the building business, a lot of friends at these wineries that they bought. And these winemakers tell me that what Behringer intends to do is do limited production at Sterling, at BV. They're going to still crush at Provenance, not so much at Acacia. Move it all to St. Helena because they don't want to expand their other facilities in the county. They all want to do it in St. Helena. So, you know, we're going to have so much more traffic. And I wake up in the morning sometimes with a truck that's going to Behringer's, sitting in my driveway or right outside. All night he slept there because he couldn't get into the facility, and he's got to wait till morning. Fortunately, they don't run their refrigeration units, because when they do, I go out there and yell at them. So, you know, there's just too much going on there. And they have to be truthful about what they're doing. All summer long for the last 3 years, they get truck and trailers with containers on them from other countries that are going to Behringer. So they're having wine deliveries or bulk wine delivered all year long over there. And like Mike says, with now on Main Street, with the turn lane, no parking on the north side going north, I'd like to see a truck and trailer make the corner at Pratt Avenue and not run over a car sitting on Pratt Avenue, because it's impossible to do. And I agree, something has to be done with that corner before you let anybody expand in the area. And they may tell you they're doing this, you know, less production, but there is going to be more traffic. I guarantee you. Thank you. Oh, I got one other thing. Sorry. Just so staff knows that there is in the CEQA guidelines, section 153.00.2, states that if there's cumulative impacts, an EIR can be asked. So they're not really exempt. And this intersection of Pratt and Main is a cumulative impact area now. And I really believe the traffic study needs to be done and an EIR has to be done on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public comment?
Does the applicant want to rebuke?
I beg your pardon?
Does the applicant want to rebuke? No, we're gone.
My name's Jose Martin. I live at 1075 Pratt Avenue. My house is pretty much directly across the street from Behringer. Been there for almost 20 years and seen the peak of the traffic with Behringer's, and with them downsizing over the years, that traffic has gone down. But currently, with the projects that are there, Las Alcobas, everything else that's been happening, there's no other way to say it, but that intersection is horrible. It's rated an F. People have been hit in the intersection, and we are seeing additional trucks coming in and out of there every day. If I didn't have anything else to do, I could probably sit there and count them, and the numbers are increasing. Behringers they've been good neighbors. I don't have any complaints against them. I just want that intersection to be safer for everybody. That's it. Thank you.
Any more comment? Would you like to?
Well, first I'm going to say Behringer acknowledges the impacts of recent activity at that intersection. They've had to deal with it themselves over the years. I think I would look to the city staff for one thing. We're here for a design review approval. It should be noted that while the original use permit was lost many years ago, the EIR, there was an EIR prepared for the site. And the city, when they approved the warehouse building, actually tiered off that EIR. For all that and the administration building, all of them required traffic studies. And in fact, Behringer has contributed to the improvement to Pratt Avenue. They installed the left turn lane heading southbound as part of their warehouse approval project. So they have contributed to it. In terms of some of these other questions, I think, Mr. Golan, you might be able to respond to some of the obviously some incidents in terms of somebody parking in front of a house to Behringer is unacceptable. And all it would take is a call to the Behringer to make sure that doesn't happen. They stage all their vehicles coming into the site, and they do have the power to stop them from parking in front of somebody's driveway overnight if they know about it. The capacity issue, this is not an expansion. We're replacing gallonage for gallonage. We say smaller tanks, but 12-ton fermenters are still large tanks in the scale of things. We use the term little, and I think a lot of times with wineries, you start thinking about 1,000, 2,000-gallon tanks. That's not what we're talking about. So they're still large tanks. Mr. Gilliland did explain how they're working to stage the loads so that we are not contributing more small trucks or more trucks onto the road. So we believe we addressed that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Questions?
Close.
Yes, I was wondering, there's the new forklift something, and I know that forklifts are very noisy, and I'm wondering if there's more forklift activity with more tanks. And I'm also curious that you said that you would be getting the same grapes from the same sources, but is that true? If you're going from one kind of wine to another, or
well, it's a fact that producing the wine, basically dumping all the grapes into a large tank, a smaller tank gives the winemaker more control in the fermentation, so he can produce a higher quality. The tanks we're taking out are 46,000 and 153,000 gallon tanks. Those are huge. And so they really have trouble maintaining a quality product in that large a tank. That's why they want more smaller ones, because they can do better cap management and produce a higher quality product.
So you can use the same grapes, treat it differently, and get that.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what you're saying.
That's what they're doing. And in terms of the forklift, there's a new forklift access ramp. I believe all your forklifts are propane? Propane and electric. So they're not noisy, and there are no additional noise generators. We're not moving any of the noise-generating equipment, i.e. refrigeration and things that make a lot of noise, any closer. They're all remaining where they are currently.
Yeah, I'm just thinking because I know during crush, wineries operate all night long, and that can be the forklifts can be pretty noisy.
And Behringer, we actually avoid working all night long, even during crush. That's one of the advantages of being able to schedule the fruit arrival.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry, Deborah Dillman with Treasury Wine Estates. The only thing I would add is that recently we consolidated our corporate offices down in the airport area in Napa, and so the administrative offices in the past year, I don't have the exact number of people that have moved from here, St. Helena, down to Napa, but it's been reduced dramatically. So those car trips have also come off the road in the last year.
Thank you. Close public comment. I have a couple questions I hope maybe Eric can answer. One of the things that I'm concerned about is the fact that they're doing so much concrete to put these tanks on, and I want to know, you've got a finding here in your E20 or in 20 about the erosion and stuff. Will that handle the additional runoff caused by the concrete rather than the way it is now?
That's what they have to submit and show in there to meet the BASB requirements.
So you've got that covered. That's a concern of mine, the fact that that is taken care of.
Yes.
And that will be covered because of in your conditions.
Correct.
Thank you. David?
I have a question for staff as well. The hotel project, the construction trucks were just on the road there at Pratt, and that made the driving along Pratt really challenging until Pratt was closed due to the rock slide on Silverado Trail. I don't recall seeing this. The construction for this, the workers that would be involved in that, they'd all be parking on site. Is that correct?
Well, I would defer that question to the applicants, but I just know this site is 70-plus acres, whereas the Las Alcobas site is significantly smaller.
Right. The other question I have, and I guess we don't really have any restrictions in this town about trucks on residential roads. Is that correct?
There are general restrictions, and I would defer to the Public Works Director, Ms. Smithies.
There are general restrictions. You know, Highway 29 is a state truck route, but the local streets they are required to have a truck if they are a large size truck that exceed the standard for local roads and streets, which we don't have any standard truck routes on our small local roads. So they need to get approval from the city when they exceed a certain length. I think it's either 46 or 50 feet in length.
And are trucks that are bringing grapes in, are they bigger than 46 to 50 foot in length?
Again, not being a wine industry expert, I would defer that question to the applicants, but I will say there's an exception to that standard that allows point-to-point trips. So if you're going to take a delivery to a specific location, you are allowed to drive on those streets in order to access that location, not to circumvent traffic.
But Park and Crenella, for example, the entrance to Behringer is not on Park and Crenella, and there should be absolutely no reason that a truck would take a shortcut through those residential streets.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Can you speak to the size of your trucks?
You know, unfortunately, I don't know the exact length of trucks, 46 or 50 feet, but I do know that was alarming to me to hear that the trucks are going down Crenella, I will definitely take it up with our vineyard operations teams to make sure that both internal and external third-party delivery companies respect the neighborhood. Again, this is we want to do what's right, and so we'll make sure that we take that up with those groups. Thanks.
I just add, this is just off, the largest truck you're going to get on a road is 65 feet. And the ones going to Behringer, I'm going to guess, are around 50 to 55 for a double.
So those would be excluded, according to our current code, from the ability to go down residential streets.
Correct.
Okay. The other question that I have is about sort of the sequencing of truck arrival during crush, just sort of nighttime, daytime, to address some of the community's concerns. Could you talk about your schedule?
Definitely. So, again, when things were not planned well, historically the site would receive grapes and operate at all hours of the day. But when you meter the trucks in properly, like we do now, which we started just a couple years ago. We start receiving trucks at 7 a.m. in the morning. If there happens to be a slug of more fruit than we were expecting to alleviate vineyard operations, maybe there's a weather event coming, we may push that up a little earlier, like 6 a.m. In addition, currently we do not schedule trucks after 7 p.m. So the grapes trucks going down the road in the middle of the night is surprising to me. That comment is surprising to me. But that's not in how we want to operate.
I have another question. And by the way, I should disclose that I did go tour the Barringer facility yesterday with the three representatives of the applicant. You've come up with a new sequencing in terms, I mean, there's a lot of space there, but you've come up with a new sequencing in terms of the trucks and the weighing, et cetera. Would that, even if you were to have, I'm sort of curious, if the schedule is at 10:15 in the morning, X number of trucks arrive, how long does it take to process them, and how many would you have at the same time, and given sort of the entry area, would there be any need for them to be outside of the property at all?
So, that's an important question. So the idea that we have with metering the trucks in throughout the day is we schedule 15-minute intervals. On average, they're sitting on the scale. Last year, we averaged 6 to 15 minutes, and time in yard was about an hour. So what that means is the truck is sitting on the scale 6 to 10 minutes, and if the trucking company and our internal operators respect the time frame that we've given them, then we have another truck showing up 15 minutes later. Again, 15 minutes coming in, about an hour going out, unloading, and then they're exiting the property.
And so would that mean that, for example, if a truck was late and sort of backed up, how much capacity could the Barringer property take to not have a truck parked on the street?
Yeah, so what we have available on the property, like Noah mentioned, we do have a large acreage, is we can essentially park the trucks off to the side on the property so they can weigh in, and then if we're not able to receive those grapes right away, we can put them on in an open space on our property and not be parking on Pratt Avenue or the side streets like mentioned earlier.
Thanks.
Yep, thank you.
And so I'd just like to point out, T1.2 is a circulation plan that was referenced. And part of my initial discussions with Barringer when they first approached the city and were contemplating this project was one of the goals of the project is to improve on-site circulation. Currently, the truck flow is not as ideal as it could be, and they wanted to move some of the obstructions, which is why they're relocating some of the equipment that was identified. And then to speak to some of the other issues that were voiced, just for the Commission's deliberations, 3 out of the 4 commenters were essentially identifying that current situations in the intersection at Pratt and Main are their main concerns. And just to remind the Commission that the project before them is a design review which is proposing no expansion in the scope of the work. So as the applicant has mentioned, there are no proposed expansion of any of the traffic impacts associated with this project. And the review of this application is limited to the findings required for design review. Staff is well aware of the concerns that the public have over the intersection of Pratt and Main and are looking at opportunities to address that. However, just wanted to remind the Commission that our review needs to be limited to the findings required for the design review application. And then it is worth noting that I think 2 out of the 4 commenters identified that they have seen some improvements in traffic resulting from some of the operational changes that Barringer's made, and so it's just something to point out.
So, sort of regardless of the matter in front of us, I really want to help protect and enhance the quality of life on Park and Cronulla. I think it's the construction of the hotel was very disruptive, and it'll be, unfortunately, we're going to find out how disruptive the operation of the hotel given their lack of parking. and the fact that the exit is right at the intersection. It's going to be challenging.
100%, I agree.
So at any rate, whatever, if we need to do a better job as a city to enforce the residential truck restrictions on Park and Cronulla, I'm all for it.
I'm sorry, one other public comment that was brought up by Mr. McKelly regarding section 15.300.2. These are exceptions to the use of exemptions. This cumulative impact exception specifically says all exemptions for these classes are inapplicable when the cumulative impact of successive projects of the same type in the same place over time is significant. And from the staff's perspective, that is not the case with regards to this application.
And I would just, not to pile on, but I would also remind the Commission that with respect to decisions that you make on design review applications that do not involve use permits, the scope of your review is limited, as the planning director said, to the criteria set forth in your design review ordinance, and that in turn dictates the scope of your CEQA review. And so your CEQA review is also limited to the scope set forth in your design ordinance, which are essentially design and aesthetic considerations.
Regardless of the constraints imposed upon us, I like the project. I think it's, why not have a higher quality wines being produced in St. Helena, and, it's going to reduce the visual impacts. The site is well protected from the street, and there's ample parking. There's so many things that if it were something else, we'd have issues. There don't seem to be that many, really.
Well, I don't agree. I think there are traffic issues. There's going to be a little bit of increase, it was said, not a lot. And I think finding number 6 and finding number 11 both apply. Compatibility with future construction, both on and off the site. More expansion, I think, with all these projects in that area have in common is bringing in more traffic. That's what's in common, and I think it's incumbent upon us to look at cumulative effects. I think we have to look at cumulative effects with design review. Am I off?
In my view, you are. I think that the scope of your review doesn't extend to the kind of use permit related review that you would do with respect to traffic issues. Also, the record before you doesn't have any evidence that there would be a substantial traffic increase as a result of this design review project. I would defer to your planning director for those specific, to confirm that. But I don't believe that the criteria 6 or 11 would allow you then to make traffic-related findings based on truck traffic that is already existing and serving the site.
Yeah, it may go up. It was said that it may go up. But the point is this. This in itself, this increment, is not significant, but taken all together with everything that's going on here is a public safety issue. And it seems to me it is significant if you see what else is going on around it. I don't see how you can take a blind eye to, because we're not supposed to look incrementally. The cumulative effects CEQA guidelines tell us that we have to look at it as a group. And so I just can't. I just think there should be a traffic study to really look into this and analyze it in terms of everything else that's going on at this intersection, given all the public input, not just tonight, but over the last weeks and months about continuing to approve these projects without taking into consideration adequately the significant impacts on public safety. So I'm finding it hard to not at least ask for a traffic analysis that would include not just this incremental, but that would include the other increases that are going on. I hear what you're saying, but I just ethically find that really difficult.
And I appreciate your concerns. I think my advice stands is that it would be beyond the scope of design review for the Commission to delve into that issue.
So you don't think, you're telling me I cannot consider number 6, the finding number 6, and the finding number 11. I cannot take issue with those?
No, you can and should consider both of those elements, but I'm saying that applying those to traffic considerations would be in excess of your jurisdiction.
Okay.
Another way to look at it would be the question of making wine on the site has been answered and isn't before the commission. So the amount of wine that's made on this property has already been decided. The question is, what is the design of the facility that's going to accommodate the production levels that have already been approved? And so that's the question before the commission. Some of the concerns you're voicing, which are, as mentioned, completely legitimate, the law doesn't provide the nexus or the connection between this project and what may or may be determined through a study of the current situation at that intersection, because this project isn't triggering any of those existing issues that have been referenced with regards to the hotel or what may or may not happen with the CIA property that's going to be going before the commission.
Okay, so but okay, well then let me read 11. Whether access to the property and circulation systems are safe and convenient for pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles. How is that not?
There's no information in the record that this project will affect those elements of the design review.
Well, there'll be an increase in trucks, but that's all right. I mean, that was said. Doesn't that count? I mean, I'm really asking. I'm not trying to argue. I'm really asking.
The staff's analysis did not determine that would result in the inability to support the project based on the required finding.
And maybe I can add some clarity to that particular finding as well. Refers to the location of where access sites are, to the extent that the design review request that's before you is involving that access site. It doesn't go to the underlying use permit kind of consideration you would have, which is whether the site in and of itself can accommodate that kind of traffic, or whether it's an appropriate site for that activity, because design review doesn't allow you to go to that deeper question of use. And so criteria number 6 really just goes to the location of the access point. And
Which is not changing? Is that what you're saying? It's not changing.
I believe what you're saying, Mr. Brown, is that if this was a new use permit, we could take that into consideration and ask for an environmental or a CEQA document to be done.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I understand what you're saying. Does that help, Bobby?
Yeah, I hear it. I'm
okay.
Very uncomfortable with it.
Any other comments?
No.
Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to move to whatever the correct terminology is to approve. Can you tell me the correct terminology, please?
Move the staff recommendation to approve the design review.
Move the staff recommendation to approve the design review.
Second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Knudsen?
Yes.
Chair Kistner?
Yes.
Commissioner Monette?
I abstain. I can do that.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you all very much. Our next item is 5.3. Excuse me. I'm on the wrong. That's right. File number PL17-012. The property location is 1230 Allyn Avenue. Tom and Gale Trainor request design review approval for remodel in addition to their existing single-family home located at 1230 Allyn Avenue in the medium-density residential district. Let's hold off on this a few minutes still.
And I also need to recuse myself from this because of past potential cross. What's the correct terminology?
I think that you, as you had described it to me, the commissioner had an interest in the property and the subject property.
Well, past sort of a cross.
And may continue to have an interest.
I don't, but because there was from the prior owners, but at any rate, I must recuse myself from this.
You mean as in across to bear? Or
all right. May I have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair Kistner. The applicant wishes to remodel the interior of the existing home and also construct a new addition on the side of the home. In order to accommodate the remodel and addition, approximately 368 square feet of the rear of the home would be demolished, including the existing kitchen, family room, closet, laundry room, and the second bathroom, as shown on Plan Sheet EC 1.1. The area being demolished would be reconstructed, and 337 square feet of new floor area would be added. These changes would facilitate a reconfigured interior space, including an increase in the wall height of the family room, a larger kitchen space, and a new master suite with a walk-in closet. In addition, an approximately 120 square foot screen porch would be added to the rear of the home. The height of the home at its highest point would be slightly reduced from 21 feet 2 inches to 20 feet 7 inches. The structure would be finished with materials that match those on the existing home, including horizontal wood siding and asphalt composition roof shingles. The project site exhibits a zoning designation of medium-density residential. The remodeling of an existing single-family home is a permitted use in the medium-density residential district. For the purposes of FAR, the applicant is proposing 2,050 square feet of floor area for a FAR of 0.24, which is approximately 700 square feet below the maximum square footage permitted. The addition on the home, accommodating the new master suite, does have two architectural projections into the side setback. These features are 2 feet in depth. One is 9 feet 9 inches long, and the other is 7 feet 6 inches long. Municipal Code Section 17-112-060A does allow for projections into required yards and setbacks, and states that architectural features, bay windows, eaves, fireplaces, chimneys, stills, and etc., less than 15 feet in length may extend into any required yard or setback for a distance of not more than 2 feet. The project, as proposed, meets all other development standards as required by Section 17-40060 of the Municipal Code, including lot width, lot coverage, floor area, setbacks, height, etc. The home is old but is not listed on the city's historical resources master list and will not detract from or be incompatible with existing historic buildings in the vicinity. Staff finds that the proposed project is consistent with both the general plan and zoning ordinance and has been designed within the context of the project site and surrounding area, and recommends that the Planning Commission find the project exempt from CEQA pursuant to Section 15301 and accept the required findings and approve design review for the proposed remodel in addition to the home at 1230 Allyn Avenue. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. The applicant is here if you have any questions of them.
Anyone have any questions of staff? No. Would the applicant like to speak?
I'm Tom Trainor, and my wife and I recently purchased this property from previous owner, Carolyn Lenhard, who was a local designer who built a number of homes she's designed here in the neighborhood. And my wife fell in love with this house the first time she saw it, and the original part of the home, the front, the living room, front bedroom, the second bedroom, and the dining room, has certain characters and qualities that we absolutely want to maintain. The house was owned prior to Carolyn by Sherman. What's Sherman's last name? Huh? Sherman Nobleman, who was a local artist, and he created some handmade crown moldings, which are absolutely precious. So we want to maintain those. The area that we are proposing to demolish is at a lower floor elevation for the most part. It's too close to the ground. It's full of dry rot, and we propose just to reconstruct that and bring it more in character with the rest of the house. The house currently is 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. It will remain 2 bedrooms and 2 baths. The 2 bedrooms are very small, so one bedroom, the front bedroom, will stay exactly as it is, but the master bedroom will be larger and have a larger closet. And the second bathroom, which is now totally divorced from the bedrooms, it's off next to the kitchen, will become a master bathroom. The exterior materials, as Aaron mentioned, will be consistent with the rest of the materials on the main portion of the house.
Anyone have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, are you the Mr. Trainor who's remodeling everyone else's house in town?
Pardon?
Are you the Mr. Trainor who is remodeling everyone else's house in town?
Yes.
Well, I'm happy to see you doing something for yourself. That's all I can say.
We're keeping our fingers crossed so we can pull this through, but we don't know.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. I'd like to open public comment. No public comment? I'll close public comment. Tracy, would you like to start the discussion?
I think to echo Commissioner Romet's comments, nice to see you do something for yourself. You do beautiful work. I think that it will be a delight to see how this house turns out, and I think it's a very straightforward plan, and it's consistent with the neighborhood. And again, I think you've been very respectful in what you've done with other old homes, so I fully anticipate and support the project.
Yeah, I figured if you were who I thought you were, and you were in charge of this project, it would be A-OK. So I have no problem with it at all. I'm very happy for you.
I don't think they've left me anything to say, but congratulations. That sounds good to me. May I have roll call? Excuse me. Motion, please.
I move to support the staff findings and support and approve the recommendation as staff written.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Yes.
Commissioner Monette?
Yes.
Chair Kistner?
Yes. Thank you very much. Next is new business. We have a consideration and proposal approval of a resolution approving and recommending City Council adoption of the City of St. Helena component of the Napa County-wide pedestrian plan. Do I dare ask for a staff report? Please, Erica.
Do you want me to read it all, or just
no? I don't think you need to read all of it. I hope not.
I'd like to just introduce Erica Smithies as obviously the Public Works Director, but also just this item. I told Erica when we were coming to the Commission, I said the Commission, I don't believe, has seen a referral item from a regional-wide plan. Definitely not in my tenure, and I don't think in any time in recent times. So it is typical for individual cities, as a part of their individual review of regional plans or citywide plans, for the Planning Commission to review those and comment and make recommendations on these to the City Council. So that's what that is. Feel free to ask questions, be engaged, and Eric and I will do our best to respond to your questions, but just wanted to kind of introduce that.
And just for clarity, our questions and comments should be as they relate to the St. Helena portion of the plan, and specifically things we control.
And I'm going to admit that I only read the St. Helena portion of the plan.
That's all you needed to make.
I was entertained to find that most accidents occurred when pedestrians were not following the rules, so I'm not sure if 100 pages are going to stop that, but that's okay.
Has anyone read
Did you read the whole thing, Eric?
I probably skimmed through the majority of it. I've been through bicycle and pedestrian plans in my previous tenure, but at Petaluma. But I was kind of surprised to see this one's broken out in two different steps. The bike plan they were supposed to update this year, so we'll probably be seeing that. I'd like to incorporate that sooner with the Planning Commission than we're getting it after the fact. But here we are. It was without me. I already get started. We started down this path. The Napa Valley Transportation Authority spearheaded this, the countywide pedestrian plan, and the purpose of it is to enhance pedestrian mobility and safety throughout our city and throughout countywide. They met in the late. In 2014, with all the individual jurisdictions. They followed up with individual workshops in early 2015. They did a walking audit with our mayor, our previous Public Works Director Steve Palmer, and I believe they worked with the Victor, which was a consultant for city planning, and to incorporate our general plan in our update that's coming along. So we're making sure that everything, our goals will mesh, and NOAA's going to be making sure it's incorporated with the update. With that, I kind of want to highlight some of the backstory on where this has been. It started in 2014. They met with the city and individual staff in 2015. The mitigated neg deck was circulated in May of 2016, and then it went to formal adoption in July of 2016 at the Napa Valley Transportation Authority's board. They then requested every individual jurisdictions to adopt in December, but that didn't happen with us and many other jurisdictions. So it's taken us a little time to get to this point, but here we are, and like to. Our recommendation is to approve the resolution and encourage the City Council to adopt it, and so we can move forward and be on the same page with the rest of the county. I don't believe any other jurisdictions had any issues. A lot of the highlights were safe routes to schools and improving mobility in our town center and our government buildings. It really meshes well with our ADA transition plan update that's citywide. It's just a real positive step forward. Now we just need to implement it and find the funds, and hopefully now we can use this plan to leverage state and federal and local funding through grants and our own local city funds. I can show the slideshow, just show some of the highlights of it if you'd like, or
Could I ask one question in how this document lives? I mean, is it like our housing element where basically then we have check-ins around it, or what happens to this document?
So ideally, as Erica mentioned, this will be referenced in the general plan, and then as individual development projects come through that have portions of these pathways on their private property, they will be required to construct those portions of the projects as a condition of their approval for their individual development projects. That gets also back to the nexus issue that I mentioned to Ms. Monette regarding our ability to make them build these improvements as directly tied to the scope that their discretion is, the discretionary application that's before us. So we might not be able to guarantee that all elements will always be constructed on individual applications or as part of individual development applications. However, we will be able to get the right-of-way as a dedication as these individual properties come forward for development, and then ultimately implement construction of that as funds available, or if a larger development project comes in and we can leverage that. So it essentially gets referenced in our existing land use documents to let developers know, hey, this is a requirement, and then also we can leverage it in individual approvals to require those elements to be built.
Well, and having a plan like this, would this help in things like the grant that we're applying for the $1 million for the sidewalks? I mean, did things like this work in our favor to have?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and they've been previously identified. The Vision 2040 plan, which was passed several years ago and adopted by the City of Santa Helena, that included the downtown pedestrian improvements along Main Street, which is why it was kind of pushed up high on the priority list with MVTA, because they know it's one of our major obstacles in downtown.
Does this supersede any city stuff that we have?
No, it's more intended to kind of work in harmony, but if, for example, we were under the 1993 General Plan pedestrian circulation element, and this project or a development project came forward that maybe the two weren't in concert with each other, there would be before the decision makers to kind of pick and choose which they wanted to use.
Okay.
However, staff would have to do a little bit of analysis to justify the newer document, if it's countywide and wasn't referenced in an updated general plan that also adopted it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because we don't have this element, but in particular in the general plan we have circulation.
That's correct.
So this falls under circulation.
That's
okay.
correct.
Yeah.
And what you were describing before, is that something like eminent domain when you're talking about?
No, it's absolutely not. So this gets back to, as I mentioned, nexus. If a city adopts a land use policy or transportation plan that says this pathway is a goal, it will be built, and a development application comes in, the city 100% has the ability to require that developer to build it in order to implement the land use plan that the city has visioned for that property.
But that would happen if it was just in our land use part of the general plan?
If we have adopted it as city policy, that's correct.
And if, irrespective of whether it's in the general plan, if it's in this, then if that's also required?
It gets a little bit less specific if it's in a regional plan that the county has or the city has not ratified.
That's what I mean. If we didn't ratify this, then, but if we did ratify it, then it's the law of the city.
That's correct.
But that's quite a bit different than eminent domain.
It's apples and oranges. What I'm saying is it is a tool that would allow public facilities or infrastructure to get built by private development. These types of things, I say it all the time, developers build infrastructure and cities maintain it. But in cities where you have a low level of development and not a lot of funding for infrastructure, you're left with a lack often of privately funded infrastructure improvements or publicly funded infrastructure improvements, and I think St. Helena has experienced that in some elements.
But we could have this in our general plan, if we something like this in our general plan, and not take and still have the same clout.
If we went through the appropriate process in order to analyze and adopt that type of a regional pedestrian network plan, that's correct.
And the beauty of this is that's been done.
Yes.
So
that would have to be included
this
in the
is chunky.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This CEQA process has been done for this. There's a huge amount of effort and analysis and outreach that goes into the creation of these types of regional level plans, even if they're just citywide.
I'm turning into a Republican as I sit up here.
All right, is there any further discussion?
Jesse, did you write that down?
In quotes, please, Jesse.
Don't you dare.
I have a question for somebody on staff. I'm wondering.
It's Erica's turn.
Okay. I like to use last names. Is it both last names used with you?
Legally, it's either or both.
So
Erica's easier, David.
So I can call you Ms. Almond Smithies or Ms. Smithies, either?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe a question for Ms. Almond Smithies. There's an error on this map that indicates that there's a paved multi-use trail. I'm sure on my dead-end street on Pine Street, I'm sure the property owners 3 down from me would be very surprised to find that they have a trail through their property. How do you make fixes? There's 2 dotted lines on Pine Street. One is between Allyn and Hudson, and that's an alleyway. There's another one indicated at the dead end between Stockton and Allyn. There is no.
What page number are you on?
I'm on page 242.
And it's a dotted line, or it is?
Yeah, it's a dotted line which indicates a paved multi-use trail between Adam Street and the dead end on Pine Street between Stockton and Hudson. I'm sorry, Stockton and Allyn. Between Allyn and Hudson, there is an alleyway. There is none between Stockton and Allyn. On page 242. If you bring it up, can you bring it up? I'll point it
Page
out.
42 of our packet, not page 42 of the report.
Page 242.
But that's our packet. That's
Yeah.
not, that's
Yes.
not the report.
Okay.
Well, that's not the report?
I thought, yeah.
I think isn't it our packet? I thought it was our packet.
That's just an excerpt.
I mean, maybe there are no errors that matter, but. Yeah. So that one, that doesn't exist.
It's there. It's there. We all know it's there. We know it's there. Been there for 66 years. I've been.
Is that the one next to Cherry Heights?
Yeah, the one that goes up to Aldo Bondio's house.
Well, the one is, somebody's got a gate on it now, right?
Yeah, there's a 5-foot undeveloped sidewalk that's there.
And I will say there are a number of these in town that have suffered maybe from lack of maintenance or from encroachment from private property that are not easily apparent.
Okay, so maybe this is the case where my lack of knowledge is apparent. I wonder, I guess there's an easement that isn't used, and therefore the city could take it on at some point. I wonder if the neighbors are aware. They must be.
Interesting.
Thanks for the correction.
I'm wondering, Ms. Erica, how much you spent a lot of time doing this PowerPoint?
This is just really quick. I wasn't sure how this meeting would go.
I would really like to see what you have done.
I just took excerpts from the element. I wasn't sure what you'd like to see or hear about. The areas reviewed were activity levels, hot spots in the city, countywide demographics and seasonal trends, pedestrian actions, collision analysis, which is always alarming. I wasn't sure. I was not aware of the fatalities at Mariposa and Pope Street and Main and Fulton. I'm not sure which year those happened in, but I looked them up because I was unaware of those. I was thinking it might be somewhere on Main Street because Adams has a lot of incidents, even if it's a signalized intersection. A second day of work here, I slipped and fell in the crosswalk myself. There was no collision involved, but it just kind of opens your eyes on there are problems out there, and we need to be aware of them, and that's why we do these analysis to see what's going on in our cities and our counties, and try to make these improvements to make enhance safety and mobility for our citizens here in the city and those who are visiting here.
Yeah, I was going to say that when this was done, the problem area ended before Pratt, but I'm sure as it gets updated the Main Street area where all the stuff has been happening is encroaching north, and that's what a lot of the concern that we've been hearing is.
Okay, I'd like to open this up to public comment now, please. Any public comment?
Sorry.
Let's close it. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have. I wanted to bring something up on page 238 of 720. Under St. Helena current practices, the last little paragraph says, commercial and residential development projects are required to include sidewalks, and the city additionally requests ADA compliant driveway designs during development review. Well, this has been an issue for me for many, many years that I've brought up a lot of times, and actually I spoke with Mr. Trainor on the phone, which is why I didn't know what he looked like. But as I walk a lot in the town, and I walk, and most of the driveways in this town slant from the driveway to the curb over the sidewalk so that the sidewalk is slanted. So ADA people, anyone in a walker, certainly anyone in a wheelchair, a person with a stroller, or old people like me who have chronic tendonitis in our knees and arthritis, it's difficult to walk on a slanted pavement. So there are places where there's half slanted and flat, and then I thought, okay, by attrition, because the ADA person was just here, and the sidewalks are supposed to be ADA approved. So I walked by a Trainor project, and they just put in a brand new driveway, and it was slanted all the way across. There was no flat place, and I was. So I called him, and he explained that he had come to the city and that because of some poles or plants or something like that, it had been decided to do that. So I was just wondering, and then I talked to him about swales, and swales are a way of having a flat sidewalk, and you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about swales.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You can get into your driveway and have a flat sidewalk and still get into your driveway. And so I was thinking it's difficult, I think, in this town because our sidewalks aren't big enough to accommodate to have that ADA accommodation on sidewalks with driveways without using a swale. So I just wanted to bring that up. I bookmarked all the places that if that were changed, all the little graphs and everything where that would need to be added as something that we're concerned about. Personally, I am as a walker, and I am as friends. I'm friends with a 90-year-old woman who lives in Woodbridge who uses a walker, and I mean, I'm a walker, but she uses a walker, and she has a lot of trouble on these sidewalks. So I didn't know if this is the right time, but I think it's an important issue, particularly because it's ADA, and we're committed to upgrade. So I don't know what you think about that. I don't know what you guys think about it, but it was a concern for me, and it has been for many years, and it's been talked about in years past before you guys were here, except for Tom, he was here. Anyway.
I would assume that anything that's existing would be grandfathered in unless they did something new.
Of course, yeah. But this was new. That's why I was taken, because this is new construction. It was a brand new driveway, and it was more of the same. So a swale would have been the only way to accommodate that particular site. So I don't know what you think of.
We were talking about a swale.
Swales don't work because we have them in Vineyard Valley, and we're taking them out.
Okay.
Well,
they're putting curb cuts in is what they're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they could work. I mean, if that's the only way to accommodate the ADA requirements with new construction.
A lot of times it's case by case, scenario. There's some places you have difficulties, especially with curb ramps. There's some places in our city we have a 12-inch curb drop to your asphalt without redesigning your entire intersection and raising that asphalt up. You're not going to be able to get that curb ramp unless you chase a city street 20 feet back, and then you're cutting off a lot of lot of the entrances to businesses. So there's some times where the scenario is excessive and you cannot make the fix without.
I accept that. Yeah, it's not mentioned in here. I just think it's important, and especially if we're talking about walking and biking.
It is one of our standard conditions of approval on our design review that we look at their existing driveway and or any other sidewalk gap closures.
Yeah.
Yes, we look at everything in that frontage, and we have to make sure there's a nexus to doing that. They're just replacing their kitchen cabinets. We're not going to require them to do a curb ramp upgrade or driveway.
So you feel it's covered in the city? You don't think it needs any more mention in this?
No, I think we're covered. Our ADA transition plan, our design review. We're always looking to improve our conditions of approval in our design review, and we're always catching a little bit here and there where we need to make improvements. But I think it's pretty well defined in what we're doing now.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Any further discussion? I have a motion, please. The motion is to send it to the council.
So I move to adopt and recommend to City Council our approval and support of the city, the St. Helena component of the Napa County-wide pedestrian plan.
Second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Yes.
Chair Kistner?
Yes.
Commissioner Monette?
Yes.
There's one more.
Commissioner Knudsen?
Yes.
All right. We have no scheduled matters, and now we're to department reports.
Thank you, Chair Kistner. So you will see item 8.1 is a list of the Planning Department administrative approvals since December. I'm trying to remember, sometime in the late fall, staff brought an item before the commission asking for some clarification in the application of the design review requirement. The commission was gracious enough to give staff a little bit more discretion in the approval of minor level construction, typically of rear yard accessory structures is how we've been applying it, to staff in order to facilitate getting building permits issued faster for some of these very low-level construction projects, and then also to streamline the commission's agenda process. And so as a part of that that allowance for some staff level approvals. Staff committed to bringing the commission periodically a list of what we have acted on administratively. That is this list. You'll see that it is very limited in its scope. We are still cautious in trying to not exceed any authority that the commission has granted us in order to improve the customer experience process for folks trying to get a building permit for simple residential structures. I will say that the most common has been these rear yard trellis structures where someone just wants some shade in their backyard. Typically, as long as they meet all the development criteria, from staff's perspective, there's no need for a design review process. The commission agreed with that and directed staff with the caveat that we provide this summary, and so that is being provided, and we'll continue to do that on an approximately quarterly basis. Separate from that, you will find a copy of the resolution of the denial for the CIA project. In making that decision, the commission gave staff some language to incorporate into the resolution. Staff just wanted to bring this back to the commission. Generally, we would not do that, as it's fairly clear the direction provided by the commission. However, the request made by the applicant when the commission formally voted to deny the project, they made a request that the commission add additional language referencing elements not mentioned in their findings, and so staff modified that resolution and has just provided it to the commission for their essentially to ensure that staff accurately portrayed the commission direction. I've conferred briefly with the chair. She felt that staff did accurately convey the commission direction to staff, and so if there's no concerns over this language, it is.
There was a change in the
Yeah, they took.
Where is that change?
I would say
You don't see it, Bobby. It's gone.
Okay.
We put in the language that the language that's in there is now is the language that the city attorney gave us.
Number 5, yeah.
It's number 5.
Essentially just references the statements and information presented in the public hearing.
That's correct.
And then lastly, staff wanted to talk about the tentative agenda that we've been providing to the commission for close to a year now. First of all, a lot of folks in the public don't seem to be aware that staff creates this tentative agenda, so if folks are interested in seeing what's coming up before the commission or what we're working on, this is available in the agenda for every commission meeting, so I would encourage folks who are interested to take a look. If there's an address that they may be interested in, so maybe a neighboring property or something that a specific project they're interested in, this lets you know that it's been filed and that we're working on it, and you're free to come in and review any files that are in the planning process. All our projects are public record, so you can review them at any time. So I just encourage members of the public to review this document. We do our best to keep it up to date. It's not always down to the minute, but generally will be anything that's been filed within the last month will be included in this. And separately from that, staff wanted to identify that there is a in the boards and commission policies direction that the commission and all boards and committees at the city report out to the city council on a regular basis. We have not been doing that regularly, and so staff would like to bring a report to the commission to the council from the commission activities, and I thought that using this list may be beneficial as a part of that report, just to let the council know what we've been working on. And further, there's a number of items on this list that the commission and the council have identified of interest. Staff has not been able to make a lot of headway on this. However, I thought maybe the commission could review this, and then at the next meeting we would schedule an item to discuss it and prioritize these projects. So therefore, when we report out to the council, we can have a list of the commission and staff's priority as to where staff efforts could be best utilized to start to address some of these kind of items that the commission and council have expressed interest in tackling as we have resources. So I would just ask that the commission review this, specifically not necessarily the active or pending projects, as those are subject to their own specific time review based on the development review process, but the PC and CC, so Planning Commission and City Council assignments currently under review by staff, and then also pending assignments for the planning department, and then other items of interest to the planning commission and required items of and issues of interest to staff. So review all of those, prioritize them. We'll have a discussion item at the next meeting. The public's welcome to participate and chime in on that, and then staff will work with the chair to formulate a presentation to the city council as to our report out, and then also to let them know what the commission's priorities are as we move forward through the next year after the council adopts their budget.
I also believe this might help get us some of the priorities that the council has that we don't really see unless.
Yes.
I'm sure somebody sees them all, but I don't think we all do.
Exactly. So just a little bit of homework for the commission, but I think it'll be helpful. And then, like I mentioned, I'll work with Grace to determine how to best present it to the council.
So you want to prioritize within each section?
Yes, please.
Well, just the ones he just named, Bobby.
Pardon?
The two sections. That
just the ones he just named.
Not the pending. So nothing in active or pending projects that are individual development projects, but the broader kind of city-initiated projects are the ones that we want to prioritize, because staff has no control over when an application is brought before us, and we are required by law to act on those within certain timeframes. Where we do have control is over the city-initiated projects that have been assigned by both the commission and the city council, and then also that have been brought up by staff as something that needs to be addressed because of changes in state law, for example.
Like the general plan update.
Yeah, exactly. I'm imagining that will be at the top of everyone's list. I'm hoping.
Oh, I don't know. Okay.
Anything else?
Thanks.
Meeting's adjourned.